tax code is a little bit more fair. And so when you do that, when you put it in its totality, you will see that it will bring down, lower the deficit, which will help fight inflation.
Can't compute rapid-eyed movement out of control, as there was finally a real question asked about our current state of reality to a member of our government. Has to be a glitch in the matrix. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. This is Ukradowski here of wearechange.org. And man, oh man, do we have some crazy news coming out of Ukraine, which very surprisingly even has Henry Kissinger coming out and even warning us about the true consequences ahead of us. Yes, you heard that correctly. Henry Kissinger is being less of a warmonger than the current status quo foreign policy that we have going now. The CDC also made a very surprising announcement. Well, not really an announcement. They kind of changed some things. They're trying to make sure that you didn't notice, as there's some crazy photos and videos coming out highlighting that the IRS is training for some, how would you say this? Forced taxation. Yeah, we're going to get into that, plus a lot more, all on this independent media broadcast. So much to get into. We're just going to jump right into it, as of course the clip that we played in the beginning of this broadcast was surprisingly from ABC News. And even though the anchor didn't push back against the lies being pushed by the official White House spokesperson, who said, yeah, no, this is going to go target the billionaires who are going to get audited. The billionaires already get audited automatically. So who is the IRS going to be going after with an $80 billion increase in their budget? Well, obviously it's you. They're not telling you it's going to be you, the average American, but we have to understand you're dealing with an unaccountable government institution that routinely lies to you. Just a few months ago, they told you the new Treasury proposals wouldn't go against small online transactions on PayPal or Venmo or Cash App. The fact checker said that it's misinformation. Articles were censored and attacked for saying that the federal government was going to, of course, tax all of these small micro transactions as published by Yahoo News months ago, and now Yahoo News is publishing, without actually issuing a correction, that yes, if you use PayPal, Venmo, or Cash App, you should look out for a new IRS tax form since you're going to be taxed on your microtransactions. Showing you once again why we can't trust the fact checkers, the alleged authoritative sources that, of course, YouTube puts on a pedestal here on this platform while screwing everyone else over. They get it wrong. They get it wrong a lot, and they usually get it wrong in the benefit of the state or the private billionaires and multinational corporations that truly do call the shots here in this country. And now the federal government that printed too much money from both political parties, from both sides of the aisle, created massive inflation, massive havoc, massive pain and suffering for the average American, has the audacity of printing more money out of thin air, borrowing more money that they don't have, sending tens of billions to Ukraine, bolstering government agencies, which of course all will resort to you paying more taxes for it. And as the fact checkers try to fact check me and censor me and try to get rid of this video and get rid of any kind of commentary about this, I think it's clear as day that the price for these ridiculous government policies will be paid for by you. As of course, over the weekend, we also got new stunning images of IRS agents training, specifically on suburban rural homes in the country, wearing tactical gear, performing, of course, an armed raid. Now, what's the official function of the IRS? To steal, to collect taxes. Them buying a number of hollow point bullets, them buying a bunch of weapons, them training to do armed house raids on suburban homes foretells a very bleak future for the average middle or lower class American whose financial security was taken from them by the federal government. Michael Safret, I think, sufficed the current situation very well by saying, quote, "Imagine raising taxes in a recession to subsidize tax credits for rich people to buy electric cars, other green energy BS that will increase gas prices, making the IRS larger than the Pentagon for more audits and looking Americans in the eye and saying this will lower inflation," end quote. And when you put it that way, yeah, Yeah, that's essentially what's happening here. And of course, the IRS admittedly politically went after people with its governmental power, specifically targeting conservative charities, organizations, and political groups, discriminating against them and using the full might of their made-up authority to punish people for their political beliefs. And you could bet your bottom dollar that this is what the government is going to continue to do, especially after the raid of the former president of the United States, who today is demanding that his documents be returned. This, as the official story for the raid, is absolutely becoming more nonsensical by the day. There's some news reports that we're getting that allegedly some of the documents have already been sent back to Donald Trump. This, as there's still a lot of unanswered questions to exactly what was happening here. Why did this happen? This, as we're finding out that the Biden administration is allegedly also trying to pressure the DOJ to press charges against Donald Trump. This, as support for the former president has risen since the raid, and many even establishment figures on the left have been calling out this larger, aggressive power move being made by the current Federal Bureau of Investigations. This, as establishment media, pundits on the corporate media, regurgitate the same talking point that no one is above the law, even though them and their friends literally break the law every single day, flaunt it in our face, and of course, don't do anything about it. In other, what in the world did the FBI just do news? We, of course, just found out that it took them 10 months to investigate the Alec Baldwin Rust film shooting, and they just released a report concluding that it was actually Alec Baldwin that pulled the trigger that took out his cinematographer that was behind the scenes and was shot by him. Alec Baldwin has been telling everyone that it was not him that pulled the trigger. The FBI, according to them, quote, he must have pulled the trigger. 10-month investigation to find that out. That's, of course, your tax dollars hard at work, literally taking 10 months to investigate if a firearm would go off by itself. Yes. In other absolutely bewildering government news, we of course got new guidelines from the CDC when it came to their policies, what to do with the global sickness going around, and they resorted to the same policies that we have been calling for since day one: personal responsibility. Now, it's also important to note here that what the CDC is telling people to do was a bannable offense that, of course, saw people demonetized, downranked, and even had their livelihoods taken away from them by big tech social media for literally saying what the CDC is saying today. And as Eric Weinstein put it, quote, someone saying these things even a short time before the CDC would have been, quote, a crackpot, selfish, low information, dangerous pseudoscience, anti-science zealot. And Eric Weinstein definitely made a good point here, as of course the CDC just relaxed their guidelines to the point of just, quote, going back to normal. Dr. Fauci is even denying that he suggested lockdowns, which he did, as many government officials are trying to quietly walk back the egregious things that they put us through while they were lying through their teeth, using tax dollars to fund their treachery on the American people. Another thing that very interestingly also just happened that was called out by U.S. Congressman Thomas Macy is that the same CDC just also quietly deleted information on their website about the spike protein that allegedly, according to them, did not last long in their body. That statement has been since deleted, leaving a lot of people suspicious, asking the question, why did this happen? Since, of course, the CDC did not publicly announce this, this seems to be a major shift from the official story that they've been telling us, and a very important one, since, of course, it has a lot of implications. This says, of course, the CDC is also hiding data and information from the general public about the results and consequences of the largest medical experiment that they have played on the American public and the public of the world. This, as their representatives go on CNN and say, I can't believe people don't trust us. Gee, you wonder why. And people have every right not to trust them, since, of course, they're a shadowy, secretive government institution that is literally hiding information from the general public and giving no liability for a product that they have manipulated and extorted people to take, which now they're lying and hiding information about. The policies of the last 2 years were absolutely ridiculous, were absolutely absurd, and now, finally now, we're facing up to the reality that a lot of mistakes were made, and a lot of powerful people don't want you knowing that. The White House literally has censored journalists on big tech social media for even asking questions, and the whole world is finding out that a lot of the, quote, medical experts and scientists could be just as easily bought off as the politicians that implemented the policies that, of course, benefited the multinational corporate billionaire banking class and screwed everyone else over. And it doesn't just stop with the global sickness, as of course there's a lot of disinformation, a lot of cover-ups, which you can actually do your own part at exposing by simply going to thebestpoliticalshirts.com. Yes, this is how we pay the bills around here, as of course we have launched this t-shirt store that has been doing incredibly well with a large amount of t-shirts, hats, socks, yoga mats, water bottles, you name it. We got it on thebestpoliticalshirts.com. By the way, still got a lot to say about Kissinger, but before we do, his little wannabe mini-me's are represented here on my shirt, highlighting two very bad people with the caption immune system deniers, which of course you could get exclusively on thebestpoliticalshirts.com. One of the many shirts that, of course, will start some very interesting conversations at the supermarket, at the local bank, at your local community center, wherever you go. The people in the know will recognize you. You will most likely get new friends. You will start some interesting political conversations. You might even change some minds, as this is the perfect form of lazy activism. We also, by the way, have a Dr. Fauci, Emperor Palpatine striking down some monkeys, beagle puppies. We couldn't fit the foster children there. Look up Dr. Fauci foster children if you really want to go down the rabbit hole. Holy cow. Things really do get dark. Well, I guess maybe we could have fit a little baby here. Next time. As of course, we usually create a new shirt every single week. Some of the shirts are too hot, too spicy to show you here on this particular platform. That's why, even if you don't want to buy a shirt, scroll down on thebestpoliticalshirts.com and be prepared for some goofs and laughs at the products that we have available for you. By the way, we have a different version of this one. I couldn't decide. The second version of the shirt that I have now that says immune system deniers says also just 2 weeks and you're free, with these two guys evilly laughing, as you could hear on the screen. Again, lots of product. This is how we support and build this independent media operation. We even got a beanie, and you can get all of that all exclusively on thebestpoliticalshirts.com. Click the link in the description below to get your merchandise right now. As of course, soon we're also going to be going towards a limited model of t-shirt selling, just like everyone else. Shirts will only be available for a limited time, and you'll get more information to that when we set up that system very soon. Now, I think it's very fair to say that American foreign policy, in response to the larger geopolitical situation, has been very tumultuous throughout the last few years, and it's only getting crazier by the days, the weeks, the months that, of course, it goes on and escalates situations, as, of course, there have been many proxy wars between the East and the West that have been carried out within the last few years. One of the most serious ones right now is not in Syria, is not in Yemen, is not in Libya, but one in Ukraine that has been fostering for a number of years now, especially with the political transition of Ukraine towards a more Western-friendly government that has been overthrown. And of course, there was the Maidan revolution that has led to this situation where now the Ukrainians are saying they will openly target Russian soldiers at a nuclear power plant inside of their country. This, again, a big, unprecedented, but very dangerous move, as of course, Ukraine or the Soviet Union don't have the best history when it comes to nuclear power plants. If you haven't watched Chernobyl, definitely worth checking out on HBO. Now, by and large, nuclear power plants are a safe and effective way of providing energy comparatively to all the other alternatives out there. But having a war and bombs and bullets and explosives and munitions and tanks all around a nuclear facility is not a smart idea. The Russians are accusing Ukraine of already striking this, quote, critical site. As, of course, many people in the world watching are like, hey, this is not a good idea. This, as the conflict in Ukraine has mainly been stagnant. The battle lines haven't changed significantly, as today the Ukrainians are bragging that they have just taken out a vital bridge in Kherson, Ukraine, that allegedly is leaving thousands of Russian troops cut off from supplies. Is this true? Who knows? Again, as everything we report from you has to be understood from a war perspective, and that the majority of information is only being released for propaganda purposes. But I think it's fair to say that the situation geopolitically is at a very tense moment, as even Henry Kissinger, former national security security advisor, the butcher of Cambodia, the slayer of Chile, the destroyer of third world countries, and the establisher of many despots and dictators around the world, is even coming out and warning that the United States is on the edge of war with Russia and China. Yes. Former U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, major globalist, a part of the CFR, Council on Foreign Relations, the Bilderberg Group, the Trilateral Commission, pretty much the handyman for the Rockefeller family, the man who opened up China to the rest of the world, the man who created the current geopolitical situation with the U.S. petrodollar, is saying, hey, even you guys are doing way too much and it's endangering all of us, which is a statement that should make a lot of Americans go, uh-oh. And this is my response saying, whoa. Because Kissinger, a man who, again, throughout his entire career had no qualms, no problems when it came to destruction and ending human life with his foreign policy, when he's coming out and saying, the current foreign policy of the Washington establishment is too much, is too dangerous. That's truly a situation that is very eye-opening to the rest of the world. Now, of course, tensions with China have been very tense with the latest visit from Nancy Pelosi. Currently, there's another congressional delegation en route to Taiwan right now, as Kissinger criticized the current U.S. political climate, which he says has trouble, quote, separating personal values from negotiations, saying that the only tensions are being accelerated, going on and then saying specifically, quote, we are at the edge of war with Russia and China on issues which we partly created without any concept of how this is going to end or what it's supposed to lead to. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but I actually agree with Kissinger's criticism of the current party establishment. What's the goal here? Why are we doing this? Why are we investing so much into this? What's the longer strategic goal for the American public? And in reality, we have to understand we're dealing with politicians who are not serving for the future of this country, but for their own personal benefit for today. And I think this is perfectly represented by the policies being instituted by, of course, the Biden administration, that very blindly is leading us to a very dangerous situation that doesn't serve anyone's particular purpose or interest. And I think what Kissinger is saying here is like, hey, if you're going to be doing all these crazy things, at least try to benefit from them, because he's definitely not coming from a humanitarian perspective. That's not who Kissinger is. As of course, we on this independent media channel have been, of course, talking about the humanitarian perspective, number one. But second of all, even if you don't give a damn about that, strategically, what's the purpose? What's the benefit of the current policies we are instituting? Kissinger says there's none. It's just politicians trying to make themselves look good. There's no long-term strategic goal. There's no benefit to the American establishment, to the American people, and towards American hegemony. And when you start to understand Kissinger's perspective from this, you really truly see the sinister nature of the policies that we are pushing forward, which are even more reckless than we previously thought. And again, Caitlin Johnston called Henry Kissinger, quote, an immoral Hague fugitive, and I would definitely have to agree with her. And he's definitely not looking out for the safety of the American people or the world, as of course many people should wonder how Mr. Chaos himself is warning about too much chaos and the dangerous disequilibrium that he's talking about, the maneuvering towards a crisis that he's warning about, should all be warnings that we should at least contemplate, especially when it comes to the policies that we are financing with our tax dollars. And to provide some alternative theories here, we also have to understand that Kissinger is predominantly looking out for himself, his interest, and his friends' interests, which predominantly aren't the interest of everybody else. So could he be warning about these specific things because it could mean a destabilization towards what he has built? Well, that's another theory and possibility here that, of course, we need to understand. As, of course, there's a lot of changing and moving things here, especially when it comes to the metaverse, transhumanism, and the fourth industrial revolution, which even Kissinger talks about many times publicly. Is he worried that a global war would stop all that? Well, who knows? But Chris Hedges also has a very interesting report that just came out on Substack that is titled, quote, we are not the first civilization to collapse, but we will probably be the last. And his sentiments, I think, are felt by many other scholars and experts and historians who, of course, are seeing the major problems ahead that are becoming more unavoidable as the United States, the current political class, doubles down on the current destruction of the average human being that is being deemed useless by the World Economic Forum henchmen. How did we get here? Well, I would say the divide and conquer left-right political distraction that have sped up the pendulum of destruction, with many people ignoring the power abuses of their gang only to be hurt by it in the next coming 4 to 8 years, as the policies and the presidents being set only further strip away your income and your freedom. How do you stop it? Well, let me know what you think can stop it down in the comment section below. I always appreciate your constructive criticism. If you thought I got anything wrong, let me know. But this is a very open-ended question. This is a very big question that I think hopefully spurs some very interesting conversations down below. I think getting out of the two-party duopoly corporate takeover system that we're under would be a start, and voting on principles and issues rather than parties and gangs could help maybe alleviate the larger problems ahead of us in our current modern day society. Someone suggested sending the 87,000 new IRS agents to Ukraine to see where our tax dollars are going. And hey, they're getting the training for it. So I think that's a good idea too. That's just my personal opinion. That's just my perspective. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you guys actively watching, sharing these videos with your friends, family members, strangers. Someone weird messages you online, send them this video. You guys buying these shirts also means a lot to me. Seeing them in the general public is also freaking cool. It happens sometimes, and it's awesome. Seeing the larger exchange of ideas, seeing the conversation, seeing people saying enough is enough. This is my idea. This is what I represent. And I think we need a lot more of that than ever. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. This is why I love you guys. Stay tuned for more here on wearechange.org.